Well, first impressions are everything. And when you release that document, I think it's fair for us to assume that there was data behind that document, that there was analysis behind that document, and that we should have access to that analysis as you work through these things. You can't just plop these in the budget process and expect us all to say, brilliant, great idea. If you really want this to work, as Senator McCaskill has said, you've got to form a greater partnership with us, especially when we have been looking at this. We are the committee that is most committed to making this happen. I'm going to give you an example. The postal issues. Right after you guys came out, I met with Congressman Meadows and the postal task force that the president's put together. So did you consult the president's postal task force? Did you consult Postal Service? What was their recommendations as you move forward with a recommendation for privatization, which has created a great deal of angst now that we have these rural communities who are very concerned? They've already lost service standards. Now we're suggesting we're going to privatize where we know the last mile is not an easy mile to cover. So my point is, did you consult the task force? Did you consult the Postal Service? What were their recommendations that came to you that led you to conclude that we should privatize the post office?
So appreciate that question, and it's absolutely something critical, and that we absolutely are interested in a sustainable economic path forward that includes universal service and provides a fair...
No, you're not really answering my question.
I'm trying to get there.
Well, just yes or no. Did you consult the President's task force on postal issues?
So the work that we did preceded the creation of the task force. So there has been communication between the bodies, and the same folks that are involved in this proposal also are participating in the work of the task force.
Okay. Did USDA suggest that they move food stamps out of USDA and over to HHS?
So I can't comment on the specifics of the origins of that particular proposal.
Imagine that you're on this side of the dais, and you are responsible for implementing this. And we, like Senator McCaskill has said, we want to help you. But this is the answer we get. We release this document. It makes us look like we're innovators, we're reformers. Oh, by the way, don't ask the question about whether USDA had this recommendation or HHS, or if that was just something somebody invented over at OMB.
Or Heritage.
Yeah, or, well, I'm not going to get into that. But I will tell you that this won't work unless we have complete partnership, and it won't work with an idea that down the line we will see the source documents. You've released a report with recommendations that will affect service delivery to our constituents. And we're interested in streamlining, but we aren't getting the kind of background information that we need to support you. Maybe you're right. Maybe these are things we ought to do. But this idea that, later on we'll all get to see the data and the documents, why release this without data and documents? Why not release something that has the kind of gravitas? And you used mergers and acquisitions. That's like one side of a merger and acquisition releasing the report to sway the public one way or the other without anyone having an opportunity to hear the other side of it, right?
So typically in M&A, most of the deliberations aren't public. In this environment, we need to have more public deliberation about the bigger ideas. What I would say is there is a bibliography on page 128 that shares a lot of the impetus for the top-down proposals, and duplication and overlap, as well as mission, service, and stewardship were the critical drivers. What I can say about the SNAP proposal is the origins of SNAP in USDA had to do with the notion of originally it being food.
No, I know why SNAP is over at USDA. I know why the
right, and what I was saying, the idea of moving it came from the notion that how the electronic benefit is delivered today electronically, not in commodity food form, at the states and local levels, it's delivered together with other forms of aid like
I
TANF.
understand. I'm not opposed necessarily to that happening, but it is a true example of where we don't have the analysis behind it that would give us the ability to say yes or no. And you know, I don't mean to browbeat you, but you know, this sense that you can hide all this data, and you know, that may be unfair, but that you can hide all this data until you spring a proposal into a budget proposal, and then we are going to have time to analyze it. It's not going to work. You're not going to be successful doing that. The best way to be successful is to give us the source data. Let us take a look at it. You know, if this isn't a political document, then let's make sure that it's not a political document by having, you know, transparency. And that's one of the problems that we have here, is that we need transparency. And clearly, on the postal stuff, you have raised a lot of concern in my state with the proposal of privatizing the post office. You have bitten off a huge chunk that will lead to, you know, weighing you down rather than working with people to listen to the various proposals. And privatizing, your example on the post office does nothing to get us to solvency. It does nothing to solve the problems of the post office. We would love to have a partner. And you know, I met with the Treasury folks. They seem to be moving in the right direction. Felt great deal of confidence with the work that's being done by the task force at this point. We'll have a chance to deliberate. But when there's an overarching kind of, you know, this is the plan, you know, it really dilutes, I think, the efforts that we've been taking. And the post office is a great example on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.